The person that we're going to be speaking to today is one of the best front ensemble instructors, composers, arrangers, and educators.
Let's go!
Pulse Percussion, Chino Hills High School, the Blue Stars, and also the Cadets.
Just go practice.
Too many people spend time just panicking about how to start, but they don't start.
Well, but I don't have any books. Go compose, go write something. But I'm not really sure. Go write something. Just write it. It's going to be terrible. It might be wonderful. It doesn't matter. And sit at the piano and figure out the exact notes of Who Let the Dogs Out. Whatever is the song that gets your body moving. You go, dun, 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 dun. Yep. I'm on my way.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of The Studio. My name is Adam. Today I'm going to have the privilege of speaking with one of the leading practitioners in the marching arts when it comes to front ensemble, arranging, composing, and education. He is none other than Ian Grom. Thank you so much to my studio VIPs, Robert Utomo, Will Flinner, Ryan Carlisle, Sunshine Han, Greg Harris, Dominic Chung, Dean P. Newberger, Marimba Maurice, and Scott Rader. Thank you so much for your continued support. And today's featured studio artist is Ethan Pluster. Thank you so much for your continued support. And if you'd like to become a studio VIP or a studio artist, you can go to patreon.com/adamtan, or you can click over here. Welcome back to the show once again. I hope you're staying safe as usual. And yes, today we are going to be talking about something that was foreign to me over a year ago. It is the marching arts. I've always been of the belief that if you are not so knowledgeable about something, you should either research it or you should ask someone who is in that field to tell you more about it. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. The person that we're going to be speaking to today is one of the best front ensemble instructors, composers, arrangers, and educators in the marching arts today. And he has worked with a lot of major groups that have won heaps of medals, including Pulse Percussion, Chino Hills High School, the Blue Stars, and also the Cadets. He has been responsible for over 35 medals since 2005. 35! That's a lot of medals, and he has also composed a lot of original music for a whole bunch of high schools nationwide in the United States. So I'd say this person is pretty well known. So it's my pleasure to welcome to the studio show Ian Grom, who is insanely knowledgeable about all of these areas, including front ensemble, composition, arranging, general playing technique on mallet instruments. He knows a lot of stuff. But before we get into the interview, Ian has actually gone one step further and has very generously given us 2 pages of the mallet parts from Pulse Percussion's 2016 show. Yes, this show actually went on to win the 2016 WGI World Championships, and it's a really good example of Ian's compositional process, which we will be referencing in the interview. So if you'd like to download it, it's at adamtanpercussion.com/download. 100% free download, no sign up required. Go get it now. Okay, so let's get started. Ian, it's a pleasure to have you on the studio show once again. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, man. Super stoked.
Yeah, dude, I'm so excited to talk to someone who's in the world of WGI and DCI. You've been doing it for many years, like 15 or so years?
Started kind of doing it pretty actively, like full-time, when I kind of stopped performing around 2007, 2008. But I was doing it for a bit before, but that was when I really kind of switched gears into being full-time in the marching activity.
I don't know many people who are full-time in the marching activity. Like, you are literally all into the composing and arranging and instructing as well. It's amazing.
For better or worse.
How did you get started in the marching arts? Like, what made you love it to the point that you do today? Because I know you're a proponent of this and you've always talked about how we want to expose this art to more people.
The irony of all this is the story started that I hated marching band and I thought it was really dumb.
Really?
And I met John Mapes, my partner, that we do Box 6 and all that stuff together. I met him while I was getting my Bachelor of Music at Cal State Long Beach studying percussion. And he was doing percussion as well. And he was basically like already on the train to be like a full-time marching percussion guy. And I wanted to be drum set player, marimbas, composer, all these things. And I was like, oh, I'm studying the real stuff. I'm really getting into it. Now, John was really good at like grinding stuff out with a met and like the precision and all that. And I kind of scoffed at a bit of that. Turns out you need to make money. And it's very hard to do that as a musician. So I was like, hey, John, in between gigs, like, you need some help teaching, walk me through it. I kind of have no idea what I'm doing. So John sort of showed me the ropes and once I got a little taste of it, I was kind of balancing being a professional drum set player with now also trying to juggle like side gigs and then trying to juggle this sort of weird, like, I guess I'll write for it. I think about 2 years in, I all of a sudden was just drinking the Kool-Aid, like pitcher at a time. And I was like, let's go! I'm just totally in. And wow, so no matter what I write, these kids will be like, okay, man, we'll play it. Like, even if it's the worst idea ever, some sort of sick puppeteer syndrome that I have or whatever it was. But there was a big picture excitement that I got when I knew I could create all the music that I never got fulfilled as a player. When I did my senior recital, I asked my professor if I could write my own marimba solo. And so I actually wrote a piece called Quintessence, which is published with Innovative Percussion. Kind of like the first sign that I was like, I think this composing, creating stuff and not playing other people's music is like where you're going. And then basically everything from there has been a turbo rocket booster strapped on, just screaming, strobe light, dodging razor blades for 15 years.
Wow.
My university was very much like a, the sort of typical world percussion, steel drum, a little bit of everything. But we were really good at that stuff with the professors that were there in Brazilian percussion. To be totally honest, I didn't really play any excerpts. It wasn't a classical school in that sense, but I was studying like, you go and do all your conventional theory and history, but like what a percussionist is supposed to do. I never played Porgy and Bess. Like there's these things that are not in my wheelhouse that people expect to be there, but I sort of replaced them with other things.
That's actually a surprise to me too, because I always thought that you'd done marching yourself before, but to have a background that's neither marching nor concert is really, really special.
Yeah. That's awesome. Some sort of weird thing in between.
Yeah.
When I was getting involved, it was just when electronic synthesizers, samplers, all that stuff started getting used. And the only training you had was like taking the manual home and reading it over the weekend. There was no classes. There's no online masterclass for how to produce that. No, you had to like literally just fail miserably over and over again. And I felt that was kind of like my entire postgraduate school. Like I didn't get my master's because I took myself to get my master's. I spent like a ton of money on Amazon and I ordered this giant stack of books. And I was like, for a year, I'm just going to read through every single one of these books. And I read them cover to cover. Wow. And it was like 12 hours a day grinding it out, like teaching myself how to write for winds. There's not enough money to just write front ensemble. You got to learn how to write for winds. You got to learn how to write more stuff to be, marketable and lucrative over time. So you have a career with longevity.
Can you list 5 shows that you've written that you think are a must watch?
It is important to see like the evolution. So like going back to Pulse in 2010 was the first year that we won. And it was kind of like at this weird time where we didn't really know 100% we were doing. We kind of got lucky. What the hell did we do? I don't know. Let's try to do it again. So there's sort of like an early accidental joy of discovery that then kind of took us a little bit of time to figure out again, what was like that perfect storm of elements. 2014 and in 2016, both of those Pulse shows were really big milestones for me, not because of the winning, but because of the process that I was learning how to evolve my musical voice. I would say there's no Chino Hills show like from about 2011 forward with Chino Hills. I don't want to say like they're all good, but each of them kind of have like an equal representation for me of like one-upping myself and changing the dynamic. I can only really listen to my most recent stuff because like I'm always evolving and trying to think of new things. And my big kick now is like being hardcore methodical about, harmonic and melodic clarity through your writing, where there's just never a question that you're always in control of what the audience is feeling. Sometimes when you write from an emotional standpoint and it feels good, you're like, but you don't really know what chord that is, do you? Like, no, but I feel it. And it's like, if I had to go back and fill out a part, would I know what scale goes with that? I was like, no. It's cool to have happy accidents, but I don't want to write accidents and not know that they're accidents. And that is like kind of nullifies all my past music in a weird way.
I know a lot of people who follow my channel know about the basic principles of WI and stuff, but they don't know what it's like to actually write a show. Can you give an overview of the process of writing a show? Like say you've been told that you need to write a show for this date. What's the time frame like? Any difficulties that you usually find? And also, do you find it easier now that you've done over 10 shows a year? You kind of know the process already, then you can just sort of repeat some certain techniques, or is it different every time?
Any composer will always admit that the scariest thing is a blank page. You're almost second guessing yourself like, well, I've already done that before. well, I did this thing I've never done before. God, it sounds terrible. Maybe I should try something else. You know, no one's ever done it. Like, well, that's because it sounds horrible.
Because
Maybe
it sucks.
you should try. Because it sucks. There's a reason no one put banana peels on the marimba. Like, I know you thought it would be good, but it's a terrible idea.
Very edgy.
I know, so edgy. The stress is not as much as it used to be at all, because now I always have a methodical way of approaching everything. That doesn't mean the music's always going to turn out the same, but my approach is very similar. I'll usually get an idea from John, and he gives me like a whole outline. Hey, here's the breakdown, or we'll have a phone call, and he's like, okay, don't say anything. Just shut up and listen. Because I'm always like but what happens when the guy meets the girl? What dress is she wearing? I'm like asking super weird details that are completely inconsequential. And it's essentially like a film composer's first meeting with the director, where they're sort of like, let's do a spotting session and let's just watch the film together, talk about what music should go where, what kind of music. And John will usually have sort of an idea, and sometimes he puts together these things we call the research track, where it's all the music that he's been listening to that's been inspiring sort of the visual conception of everything. And he'll send it to me, go, what do you think? Are you into it or are you not? I'm like, yeah, or yeah, or yeah. Or like, I think we've done this. And that's kind of like, before we do everything, we kind of get like a read on the temperature. And he's like, okay, we'll take a day. Now you're into the show. But the most important thing, and I think where a lot of people mess up, is they're like, cool, I'm going to start writing. You're like, whoa, 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 whoa. What's the beginning, middle, and end? You don't even have a table of contents. You don't even know what you're doing. Like, oh no, but I love this Coldplay song. I'm going to put it in the show. Like, but the show's about something you might not use that song for. Like, oh no, it'll work. This song's great. You're like, okay. So if you're arranging and you're not composing, you're much more of like a music coordinator, where you're just trying to find the right music that fits the vibe, and then you translate that and orchestrate it. As a composer, you're trying to like, okay, can I compose something that's better than a piece of music that already exists that will have like instant recognition? Can I write something better than Dr. Gratis ad Parnassum? We will go into that later when we check out the excerpt. We start from building block 1. And I sit down at the piano, the computer is off, and we go like, okay, what world does this show live in? If you write a really great melody, the melody is going to sort of imply the chord progression already.
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
the most memorable melodies, Happy Birthday, all these things, they're all just chord tones with appoggiaturas and passing tones and all that. But they're essentially outlining chords. Star Wars, all these melodies that everyone knows. Indiana Jones, dun 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 dun. There's the chord change right there. It's spelled out for you. So like for me, I live in that world at the piano as long as I can before I go to the computer, because I want to have all my composition building blocks, like my paint buckets, all the colors that I'm going to use. But I don't want all the knowledge of all music forever coming with me into the studio.
So yeah, the prior experience helps a lot then, but you've also learned to not take it for granted. I'm really interested because also you've come from a background, like you said, that is neither concert nor marching, but you would have enough experience in both worlds to answer this question, which is, what is the difference between writing for a concert percussion ensemble and, say, a marching front ensemble?
There's so many differences in the essence of like, when you're writing for marching percussion, you're serving a lot of masters. You have to be the best, essentially. You know, you're competing on a technical skill level. You're competing on a musicianship level. You're competing on a creative level. Compete, compete, compete. You can't ignore that it is a hardcore competition with an itemized rubric and numbers that have to get put down. Writing cool enough stuff so that members want to stay. Concert percussion, it's way easier. If you want something to open up for like 2 minutes and just do a long, slow build, that's great, and you have plenty of time. Indoor percussion, you got 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and you got to get out. The battery's got to play. So you have these super tiny windows. What actually happens in this arrangement of Dr. Gratis is it's only 45 seconds long, but it goes through like this entire whirlwind. And I think the pacing compression, meaning like the rate at which events happen, it's so intense in indoor percussion. You shouldn't write like you would for an acoustic percussion ensemble that's going to be in a concert hall the way you would for a outdoor ensemble that might be in a sports arena. Really just two different animals that live in different places, and they do serve different purposes. You're also trying to get adjudicated on precision of performance. Big thing in WGI is a term called clarity of intent. Dumbest version of that is, can you hear every single thing that you're seeing being played? Because, you know, you just get some morphy, squishy mallet parts when you have 4 or 5 marimbas, you're like, oh, it sounds beautiful. Like, but does it really? Can you hear all of the notes? Can you hear the knock on the bar, or do you hear the general arpeggiation? Same level of detail, I think, as like the orchestral world in some ways.
So it's just, we have the very unique perspective of someone who writes for both WGI and DCI and also teaches both. Is there any particular difference when you have to write for WGI front ensemble versus a DCI front ensemble?
So my last year writing for DCI was 2016, but before that I did the 4 years of Blue Stars, and then prior to that 4 years at the Cadets, and I learned a lot. It is a different monster, mostly because throughout the year you get a ton of reads. Same judges see you many times. They see you up close and personal, and they see you outdoors. There is no room to hide, and in indoor percussion there is a lot of room to hide, because you might only see a certain group of judges maybe once or twice, like at the end, and the acoustics in the UD arena are not super conducive to cutting with a scalpel and really being able to know, like, was that exactly perfect? You just know a general sense of clarity compared from one group to the other. But when you get outdoors and you hear stuff bone dry out in a hot field, it is very obvious. You also have way more time. You have so much rehearsal time in drum corps, so you can kind of play a lot more. The shows are a lot longer. Like an indoor show, like Independent World, will be about 7 to 7.5. Drum corps shows like 11.5 minutes. You know, the new thing that has been evolving with everybody is everything is sectional playing. Everyone is like, you play, then we play, then you play, then we play, because it was the only way people could counteract the bad acoustics in all of our.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's cool.
To get the clarity of intent, everything turned into sort of French orchestration, where it's like, one main idea, everyone else shut the hell up, because it was the only way to get any clarity out of the ensembles when you're in less than perfect acoustic environments. So even drum corps now for so long has been in Lucas Oil Stadium, which is notoriously horrific. It's so boomy in there. You're like, did we nail it, or was it really terrible? And I've heard this group all year. You're like, yeah, it's pretty good. You're like, that's weird. If we don't even know, we teach it every day. How's a judge supposed to know? Everyone's getting smarter, so the judge stays on the front sidelines and kind of does this. So all of the percussion features now are happening where the battery's coming up right behind the pit, so that they get maximum credit for that. Like, they're just trying to keep the judges from getting murdered on the field, or mostly tripping a kid and having the kids fall over. There's just like a lot of safety issues with all that.
You were talking earlier about how you read manuals of electronic instruments cover to cover to learn them, and you were coming in to the scene at a period where electronic instruments were starting to become more common, and some people agree that that's a good thing. Some people disagree. They say that you should keep it to, you know, the purity of acoustic instruments or whatever. What is your opinion on the emergence of electronics in the marching arts, like synthesizers,
well, you know,
effects?
Because I've been using electronics since like 2006. So when you've been doing for something for 14 years, you're not really like, is this really emerging, or did everyone else finally like catch wind of it and like, yeah, I will plug in my stuff also. Wow, I'm not sure if this is for me. I prefer it acoustic.
You're a trendsetter, Ian.
I think they're adapted to make the music for the generation of performers that are doing it, and I think a lot of people treat this activity like it's supposed to be somehow beholden to them for how it was for their generation. But you're not performing this. You're not the one paying the fees, because this generation of kids grew up with electronic music being an absolutely pivotal part of their experience. Why would we not have those sounds in their music? I'm not writing music for me. I'm trying to write music that these kids can feel attached to, that feels modern enough to be contemporary, but still legitimate enough to be real percussion music. You know, so it's like, I don't really care what you think anyway, so I'm still gonna do what I do.
But that makes a lot of sense, actually, to sort of broaden the appeal of the marching arts to younger people. It just seems a lot more contemporary, if you know what I mean, like contemporary, and also appeals a lot to more mainstream audiences. I think it's just good to get music and percussion music out, especially to people who don't know about it as much.
You want to go all acoustic, you can, you know, and most people are like, well, we needed a synth. Well, we actually needed a sampler too. Well, you know, we had to plug the mics in, and then the next thing you know, everyone's playing with fire together, and it was all just a ridiculous conversation in the first place.
A lot of people ask me on the channel, I'm struggling with starting to compose for mallet instruments. I don't know where to start. I feel like there's a lot of things you do. Do you start with melody first? Do you start with chords, like you said, sometimes you start with chords first. Do you have any tips for anybody who is watching this who may want to start composing for mallet instruments, whether it's for solo, for ensemble? What are some important points that they should keep in mind?
Study everything that's not mallet percussion. And I think it's so important to not delineate that composition for an instrument is one skill and composition for this. Composition is the skill. It doesn't matter what you write for. You can compose for a paper bag if you're a composer. So, and you could. I could grab a paper bag right now. You give me 15 minutes, me and you, we could create a duo. We would be doing the thing and we would have it because we're not like, oh, well, I don't play paper bag. I don't know what the language is. Like, no, you know how to create events that are engaging. How do I compose? Go compose. Well, but I don't have any books. Go compose. Go write something. But I'm not really sure. Go write something. Just write it. It's going to be terrible. It might be wonderful. It doesn't matter. Because the only way to compose is to compose. I have a whole thing about theory that I think is total BS because all theory was created post the artists creating the work that the theory was derived from. So no theorists create good music because they're too busy worried about the rules. They're not actually creating music. You just have to write, and then you have to transcribe. Whatever you can transcribe, you transcribe it. And if you're the worst transcriber ever, just get the melody and sit at the piano and figure out the exact notes of, Who Let the Dogs Out. Whatever is the song that gets your body moving, you go, dun, 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 dun. Okay, I think I got this one. Yep, I'm on my way. And then you figure that out. But even that is a better conduit than having someone tell you what the melody of Who Let the Dogs Out is, or giving you sheet music. You go, now I know it, and you throw it out. It doesn't become internalized. You have to force yourself to figure out, like, darn it, what is that middle note? And then when you eventually realize it was a C sharp, you're like, yes. And then that becomes part of your soul. And it becomes part of your language. Then when you go to a marimba, you have a vocabulary to speak with. But if you're just sitting at a marimba playing permutations that feel good on the hands, you're not going to write any music that hasn't been accidentally written 1,000 times over. That's why so many marimba pieces are so forgettable, because it's just so mechanically driven.
Oh, yes.
I write almost all of my music sort of non-ergonomically. I'm writing what melodically needs to happen. What is the voicing? And then I reverse engineer in the orchestration process. How the hell is everyone going to play this? But I don't concern myself with that while I'm writing it, because it's such a deterrent to creating forward momentum in the composition to get caught up with the performer. I don't care about the performer. They're going to figure it out. I'll find a way to split it up. And that's kind of like where the creativity comes in, because there's only so many things you can do when your brain's stuck here.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's it. You're like, but I have octaves. You're like, oh, so you have 2 notes to work with in each hand.
Great, one more. Too many people spend time just panicking about how to start, but they don't start. That makes sense? Like they just sit there.
Because they're so worried about
they're so worried about it being wrong, right? But there is no wrong if you don't know what the wrong is. Similarly, like you were saying, I've heard countless marimba solos released in the last 3 years that all have some permutation of 1, 2, 3, 4 in the 4 mallets, and they're all perfect fifths, and they all sort of go up and down a few times, and then maybe switch it to triple laterals for some variants.
Probably going to be on white keys.
Yes. And then the piece will be called something like Blue Hills in the distance.
Rain sprinkles.
Rain sprinkles. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the PDF excerpt. So if you haven't already downloaded it, it's at addingtownpercussion.com/download. And there's also a video link in the description below showing the exact section that we're talking about. It's very clear. It's really nice if you want to get an up close and personal view of what's happening in the part. By the way, if you're enjoying the interview so far, please remember to give this video a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it.
Dr. Gratis, there was something about it that I was like, man, this thing just hits you in the feels. There's something about it. And we had this moment in the show that was supposed to be this childlike joy. Essentially what's happening in the show is this group of orphans. One of the kids finally gets adopted, and there's this huge celebration as the kids are jumping on the bunk beds. And I was like, there's a lot of different ways you could frame this, but I had secretly always been trying to find a way to do Dr. Gratis. This is the moment I'm going to do it. Okay, every version that I've ever seen of it always has these cascading lateral strokes, which is fine if you are a marimba soloist. Horrifically difficult to clean with any sort of meat in an ensemble setting, because you can't create enough velocity in the bar with consecutive laterals, especially not the direction that the original went. I kind of like did some auditory illusions with using more of an alternating stroke permutation, because the velocity down into the bar is really important in our activity to create a weight to the sound. If you see everyone trying to play like really loud laterals, like, you know, it's like to really get that, it's not going to happen. And then of course the piece is all white keys. Awesome.
Easy.
So, easy, no problem. One giant blank piece of wood. What could go wrong? So I actually changed keys to incorporate black keys into it. You'll notice that I believe I wrote it in a couple flats so that we could access more of the black keys. And essentially I had to sort of work out, what is the best key to put this in? What is the best mallet combination we can use for this? The big discovery became putting the melody in the one mallet. Everything is left-hand lead. So booga-digga, 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 all of the melody stuff instead of bum, 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 and everything's descending. So then it was a matter of distributing all of the chord tones and accurately, and this is another reason why we all need to study our theory, is so you don't blow Debussy's harmonies up. Because all those little tight subtleties, you have to know what the difference is between a passing tone, a melody, and how to fill out the chord tone so the audience is hearing the correct progression. One half step means you've ruined the piece. So when you make augmentations to an existing piece, you got to do it with the respect. But I don't think it should be kept in a glass jar in the roof of your house and never touch it. You know, it's got like a golden beam that shines on it. Like, no, don't touch Debussy. I was like, no, I'm taking the butcher knife to this for sure. And this is where it gets very challenging as a writer, is to extend with new material. If you're halfway educated, you know the piece. And so you're like, oh, I bet it's going to go boom, 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 boom. And then it ends and you're like, good job. You did exactly what I thought it was going to do. I didn't want that. I had to basically create an extension that would modernize that. So what you'll see at the end of the excerpt is an inner mallet, a cello, where things basically take those same romantic type harmonies and we start to get a little bit more modern. And then there's a quick pitch and ditch where they drop the two mallets and then come up for this really fast. To get that next level excitement. And the cool part about this is you've achieved a level of sound quality with four mallets that the audience thinks like, this is as beefy as it's going to get. It's so huge. Then for the climax, you switch to two mallets for the last part, which gets an extra meat in there where you just go, yes, finish the phrase strong, woo! And I think one of the biggest mistakes I see so many people do is everyone's afraid to play with two mallets. Like somehow it's cheating. First of all, playing with two mallets is really hard. And it sounds way better than when you're playing with inner mallets every single time. All these pits and all these groups that their hype is like playing everything with inner mallets. And I'm like, that's cool. I'll just play it with two and play it way better.
This is a really great excerpt. Thank you for providing it.
Yeah.
Like, it really shows a really good example of taking an existing thing and modernizing it. Yeah, it's pretty intense. And I can definitely still see the melody really clearly, which I really appreciate, because I know sometimes people arrange these classical melodies and they sort of bury it under a lot of extraneous things. Yeah, like texture, like lots of like peanut butter. Whoa. This question is more related to the current situation that we have, which is obviously everything's been cancelled and a lot of people are being at home, staying at home, which is a good thing to do. As an instructor for front ensembles, do you have any good exercises or warm-ups that are specifically front ensemble that people can do at home?
So there's a couple things. The number one thing everyone can do at home, you don't need an instrument, is the Jojo Mayer clapping exercise from Jojo Mayer's instructional video. But it's a forearm burner.
Oh, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the goal is to develop forearm and wrist strength. And the more you do it, and as you develop that volume, it just keeps that forearm and wrist muscle engaged. The cause of tendonitis is a weakness within the wrist pulling back. It's not so much the forearm flexor here, it's the wrist overextending when they start pulling mallets into their hands. There's no like substitute for just some good old floor practice. Having big, heavy mallets that you can just sit and watch TV and literally work on your rotations. Go through any combination of permutations in the method of movement book. I went through like a whole phase in college where I would just play through rudiments and figure out how to do 5-stroke rolls, 7-stroke rolls, paradiddles, and all of that, and get out stick control. And every right left was like a 1-2. So you're like right left, right left, right left, right left, right left, right left, right left. And anything you can do to just get those muscles moving. It's not even about like having the best exercise. It's kind of like the composing thing, right? Just compose, just play.
Yes, just
what
start.
should I practice? Just practice. It doesn't matter. Just hit your damn instrument, get the mallets in your hand and turn on a metronome and play great rhythms. Oh, I don't have an instrument. I guess I can work. Like, your rhythms suck. Go work on rhythms. God,
Yes.
your rhythms are terrible.
Yes.
Play fivelets for a full week and then be able to play all the fivelet partials. Be able to play in between triplets, 16th notes, and fivelets, and being able to do all of that. Everyone's like, give me an exercise. Like, but you're not even really practicing in the first place. Just go practice.
People always say, well, if you want to do something over the holidays, how about you buy this book that costs $150? I mean, there's no shipping now, but you can just pirate it. I don't know.
Or you could just do all this stuff that's for free and just get really excited about music, because that makes all of us better if we have a new generation of younger people that are like motivated. Like, yeah, I would love for people to buy a bunch of my music or whatever, but I really care more about everyone just keeping their head in the game.
So finally, do you have any advice for young percussionists who would like to be part of the marching arts? Well, not even younger players, even just any players that want to join, open ensembles or anything.
Have an open mind about everything. Don't assume that everything that person says is the absolute truth, but also don't assume everything they're saying is wrong. Everyone has something they can give you. And I think there's a perception like, oh, well, this group's not that good, but when I get into that group, that's when I'm really gonna learn. And that is not true. If you talk to anyone that's been doing this a long time, everyone talks like, oh man, I was in that one group, but that's really where I learned most of it. And that allowed me to do this. And there's great education everywhere. There's also not so great education everywhere. Choose the right place for you, because being part of the culture is such a bigger thing than just winning a medal or doing really well in competitions. It's about a sense of family and ownership and feeling like you're part of building onto something. And they have something that's a little bit more transportable as a life skill versus just, I got this medal, I'm good at this thing, I only play marimba, and whatever these things that are really like fleeting skills versus something that they can put in their pocket and make themselves better people when they leave.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all the advice and all the tips that you've given us in such a short time. I'm really appreciative of this, and I know our audience is also going to be super appreciative of all this advice, because it's not often we have someone who is literally one of the leading names, one of the cornerstones of arranging and composing and instructing front ensemble and in the marching band in general. So thank you so much,
Ian.
Ian.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Dude,
man.
thank you for having me. It was a great honor. I'm just such a huge fan of yours. So this was like ultimate fanboy super hang.
Yeah, me too, man. Right back at you. Okay.
All right, take care, brother.
So once again, it's a great pleasure for me to talk to someone of Ian's caliber from the marching arts face to face. I've learned a lot from this interview. I hope you did too. Let me know down in the comments below if you have any questions for Ian, and hopefully Ian can answer them in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed today's video, please give me a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. And yes, I'm hoping that I can do more interviews over Zoom like this because of the period that we're in right now. So once again, if there's anyone that you think that I should interview, let me know down below. Finally, if you haven't already, please hit that red subscribe button below to keep up with my uploads. As I said, I'm uploading every single week as per normal. Make sure you hit that notification bell to know whenever I upload a new episode. And yes, we talk about all kinds of stuff on this show, not just marching, not just marimba, but just everything to do with percussion is on this show. It's a really fun place to be. So make sure you hit that red subscribe button below. Thank you so much for watching this week's video, and I'll see you guys next week for another episode of The Studio. Good night.
I know your body.